testing an INFJ is not only a mistake, but also a deeply misguided endeavor. INFJs are complex, introspective, deeply caring, and highly intuitive, often carrying a profound sense of empathy and a need to help others. However, when pushed too far, they can quickly transform into someone unrecognizable. If you've ever wondered how INFJs handle betrayal, manipulation, or emotional games, this video will shed light on why testing them can cost you more than you might think. If you want to truly understand yourself and unlock your full potential as an INFJ, check out the INFJ Mastery course today. The link is in the description of this video. What many people fail to understand is that INFJs possess an incredible sense of awareness when it comes to people's motives. They don't just see the surface level, they can read between the lines, picking up on subtle cues like body language, tone, and energy. This allows them to perceive when someone is being disingenuous or manipulative. To an INFJ, testing them is not a mere trivial act. It feels like an intrusion into their deepest emotional space, a breach of trust that can be difficult to repair. INFJs take betrayal and deception extremely personally because they invest so much emotionally in their relationships. When their sincerity is questioned or mocked, they often feel that the very core of who they are has been invalidated. The consequences of testing an INFJ are often severe, not because they react aggressively or overtly, but because of the emotional fallout that follows. While INFJs may remain silent and composed on the outside, internally, they are likely processing a storm of emotions. They begin to question their judgment and wonder if they had misread the person in the first place. This deep internal conflict leads to emotional withdrawal, as INFJs protect themselves from being hurt further. They may retreat into their introspective world, seeking solace in solitude to recover. During this time, they often disengage completely, as the emotional cost of trying to maintain a connection with someone who has tested them becomes too great. What's even more dangerous is that INFJs, being introverted intuitives, can hold grudges. Their memories are vivid, and they tend to store emotions long after the event has passed. Testing an INFJ can lead to a slow but steady erosion of trust. Even if they appear to forgive, it's highly unlikely they will forget. They may choose to cut ties altogether, quietly distancing themselves from those who have failed to meet their expectations. While this might seem like a peaceful resolution from the outside, those who test an INFJ will quickly realize that the relationship is now permanently altered. The warmth and openness that once characterized the connection are replaced by emotional distance and quiet detachment. The INFJ may even become indifferent, refusing to engage in conversations or share their thoughts and feelings with the person who tested them. INFJs, when pushed too far, may begin to doubt their own self-worth. They may start to question their judgment, wondering if they have been too trusting or naive. This self-doubt is particularly damaging because INFJs already wrestle with perfectionism and a deep fear of letting others down. If they feel betrayed or manipulated, it can send them into an emotional spiral where they overanalyze every interaction and wonder if they miss the warning signs. This inner turmoil, though often hidden, takes a toll on their mental and emotional health. INFJs are governed by their values, and when these values are tested, they feel as if their very identity is under attack. They are guided by a strong moral compass, and any attempt to manipulate or control them challenges this core belief system. The consequence of such an action isn't just a simple fallout. It is a complete shift in how they perceive the person who has tested them. They may no longer view that individual with the same level of trust or affection. The relationship may forever be tainted by the fact that the person did not respect their boundaries, which could lead the INFJ to quietly exit the relationship without any formal explanation. In romantic relationships, testing an INFJ is particularly damaging. They invest deeply in their partners, striving to build a meaningful connection that goes beyond surface-level interactions. They are all in, emotionally, and when they feel that someone is testing them, whether by playing games, being inconsistent, or withholding affection, it can create an insurmountable rift. INFJs are looking for authenticity and emotional depth, and when these qualities are absent, they begin to lose interest, even if they try to hold on. The emotional investment is simply too high for them to continue in a relationship where they feel uncertain or manipulated. INFJs are deeply committed to helping others grow, but they will not tolerate being disrespected in the process. They will not remain in situations where they feel belittled, unappreciated, or exploited. Once the trust has been broken, the INFJ will not hesitate to distance themselves from someone who has tested them, regardless of how much history they share. They would rather be alone than subject themselves to emotional turmoil. They may even adopt a stance of indifference, emotionally detaching themselves from the situation to avoid further hurt. They also possess an idealistic view of the world, and when that worldview is shattered by someone testing them, they experience a kind of disillusionment. They may feel that their ability to trust people has been compromised, leading them to retreat further into themselves. While this might seem like a defense mechanism, it is actually a reflection of how deeply they care. They would never want to put themselves in a position where they could be hurt again, which is why they often err on the side of caution when they sense manipulation or testing. INFJs are highly protective of their emotional energy because they understand the depth of their sensitivity. Their emotional well-being is not something they casually share with just anyone. It's a space reserved for those who have proven their trustworthiness and authenticity. Once they feel tested, even in the slightest way, the INFJ's natural response is to protect themselves by creating emotional distance. This detachment isn't always obvious on the surface. It can appear as if the INFJ is simply withdrawing from the situation, but beneath this behavior lies a powerful sense of self-preservation. When they pull away, INFJs do not merely cut ties or close off communication. They experience an emotional and mental shift. They begin to reframe their entire view of the relationship, questioning everything from past interactions to the person's true intentions. This rethinking process can often lead INFJs to reevaluate other aspects of their lives, especially their relationships, their values, and their personal boundaries. Testing them triggers a kind of internal recalibration, where they decide what truly matters to them moving forward. And, unfortunately, the person who tests them is usually the one left on the outside of this emotional recalibration. INFJs can be extraordinarily patient, but patience has its limits. They may allow someone to repeatedly test them, hoping that the behavior will cease or that the person will recognize the harm they're causing. However, as the tests continue, the INFJ may start to lose faith in that person's character. What started as a minor test can snowball into a major issue, leading to resentment, disillusionment, and a quiet but firm decision to disengage. For the INFJ, this isn't just about the immediate betrayal. It's the cumulative effect of feeling emotionally manipulated, misunderstood, or undervalued over time. Testing an INFJ also brings to the surface their tendency to be people pleasers. INFJs have an intense desire to make others happy, to help others grow, and to bring peace into their relationships. However, when someone tests them, it forces the INFJ to confront their own sense of self-worth. They begin to ask themselves, am I not enough as I am? Why do I have to prove myself to someone who doesn't seem to value me? This questioning can shake their confidence, especially if the testing comes from someone they deeply care about or trust. It pushes the INFJ to confront painful truths about their relationships, forcing them to see things for what they truly are, rather than what they had hoped or believed them to be. One of the more subtle, but equally damaging consequences of testing an INFJ is the way it affects their future interactions with other people. INFJs are deeply loyal and will go to great lengths to protect and nurture those they love. However, once they feel tested, they may struggle to trust future people in their lives. Even if a new person is genuine, the INFJ's trust has already been eroded by the experiences of being tested in the past. They may find themselves holding back, afraid to fully invest emotionally, for fear that they will once again be subjected to manipulation or emotional games. INFJs are naturally inclined to serve others, to be the voice of reason, and to stand by those who need them most. But when they are consistently tested, they begin to question whether they are being used as an emotional crutch for others to lean on. This can make them feel undervalued, as if their kindness and empathy are being taken for granted. Over time, They may find themselves exhausted by relationships that only take and never give. The emotional toll becomes unsustainable, leaving them feeling drained and empty, often at the expense of their own emotional needs. What is particularly painful for an INFJ is that they rarely ever voice the hurt directly. Their natural inclination is to retreat inwardly, where they can process their emotions away from the judgment of others. This silent suffering, however, should never be confused with indifference. INFJs feel deeply. They simply choose not to express their pain loudly. They internalize the hurt and carry it quietly, sometimes for a long time, but this doesn't mean it's gone. Eventually, this accumulation of unresolved emotions will either manifest in a quiet departure or a significant shift in their perception of the person who tested them. INFJs also tend to think about the long-term implications of their relationships. They often consider how their actions will affect the dynamics years down the road, which is why they invest so much emotionally in the present. They understand that their ability to be vulnerable is precious, and they don't give it away freely. When someone tests them, they begin to ask themselves, is this someone I can truly be open with? Can I trust this person to hold my heart without hurting it? If the answer is no, they may quietly start to detach, knowing that a person who tests them will never be someone they can fully trust. What many fail to realize is that an INFJ's silence in the face of being tested is not a sign of weakness, but a form of self-protection. They know when enough is enough, and though they may not express it outwardly, their boundaries are being tested in ways that are deeply painful. The person who tests them, thinking they can push or manipulate the INFJ, underestimates their strength and resilience. INFJs are not easily broken, but they are selective in who they allow close. Once trust is broken, it could take an extraordinary amount of time to rebuild, and in many cases, it may never fully return to its original state. Another subtle impact of testing an INFJ is the way it forces them into emotional exhaustion. INFJs are already natural empaths, taking on the emotional burdens of others without even realizing it. When someone tests them, it amplifies their sense of responsibility, making them feel as though they need to justify themselves or prove their worth. This emotional labor can be draining, as INFJs are not only processing their own feelings, but also the other person's intentions and motivations. Another thing that is often overlooked by those who test an INFJ is the immense emotional intelligence that INFJs possess. They are highly aware of the undercurrents in social dynamics, what is left unsaid, what people are trying to avoid addressing, and the true meaning behind certain actions. When someone tests them, they are not only processing the surface-level behavior, but also attempting to decipher the deeper reasons for it. This analysis can cause mental fatigue, as INFJs are in a constant state of figuring things out. They might wonder why the test is happening, what it reveals about the other person, and whether there is an underlying motive they haven't uncovered yet. This constant mental processing can leave them feeling overwhelmed, further distancing themselves from the person doing the testing. The INFJ's natural desire for deep, authentic relationships only intensifies the hurt when their boundaries are tested. INFJs don't seek out shallow relationships. They crave profound, soul-deep bonds with others. So, when someone attempts to manipulate or emotionally test them, it feels like an assault on the very thing they value most: genuine human connection. INFJs believe that relationships should be built on mutual respect, understanding, and trust, and when those pillars are challenged, it undermines their whole worldview. The emotional fallout from this kind of testing isn't just a temporary irritation. It can shake the INFJ's belief in the possibility of meaningful relationships, causing them to retreat further into their solitude. They have an intrinsic need for peace and balance. They are not just peacekeepers in their external world, but they also crave internal harmony. When their peace is disturbed by someone testing them, it creates an emotional imbalance that they often struggle to rectify. INFJs are naturally prone to self-reflection, but when the peace they've worked hard to maintain is disrupted by manipulation or emotional testing, they begin to feel like their internal equilibrium has been thrown off. This leads to a state of emotional unrest, where they may find themselves overthinking the relationship and questioning their own role in it. They might start doubting their own instincts. Another significant aspect of why testing an INFJ can be so damaging is their inherent need for affirmation and validation in relationships. INFJs invest so much of themselves into others that they often overlook their own needs for emotional acknowledgement. When they are tested, especially in relationships that are close to them, they begin to feel invisible. The person who is testing them is essentially saying, "You're not enough just as you are," which strikes at the heart of an INFJ's deepest fears. Fear of inadequacy and fear of being overlooked. INFJs, though they often keep this to themselves, deeply need to feel seen, heard, and understood. Testing them not only hurts emotionally, it damages their self-esteem and their belief that they are worthy of love and respect as they are. INFJs also have a tendency to ruminate, to revisit events in their minds over and over again, trying to understand them from every possible angle. When someone tests them, they are likely to spend hours, days, or even weeks replaying the event in their heads, trying to understand why it happened and how they could have prevented it. This constant mental revisitation can become mentally exhausting, affecting their ability to focus on other aspects of their lives. INFJs often find it difficult to let go of these events because they feel so personally impacted by them. Their ability to trust again, to love again, to fully invest emotionally again can be significantly compromised as a result. INFJs are masters at compartmentalizing their emotions, but they can only do this for so long before it begins to have an effect on their physical health. The mental and emotional strain of being tested can manifest in physical symptoms, such as headaches, fatigue, or even more severe conditions like insomnia or digestive issues. This is because INFJs internalize their stress, and it often doesn't get released in healthy ways. They don't often seek out external help or express their struggles to others, choosing instead to bottle up their emotions. But over time, this emotional pressure can build up, leading to burnout or even long-term health issues. The point is, testing an INFJ is a dangerous game to play, one that can lead to emotional withdrawal, permanent damage to the relationship, and deep introspection. INFJs may not react immediately, but the emotional toll it takes on them is profound. Those who test them risk losing an incredibly loyal and loving individual, and once that bond is broken, it can be very difficult to repair.